Welcome to the third and final season of our Miss Scarlet Summer. I'm Christina Zeiders.
And I'm Tom Downing. And what I have a prediction for this season is...
Yes.
Okay. I have a prediction. I hope this happens. I hope that we have at least one episode where Mr. Potts and Eliza have to work together. Even though they really dislike each other, I think that would really be fun to see.
It's really funny, too, that Mr. Potts changes whether he likes or dislikes Eliza based on whether Ivy's in the room.
Oh, in the room, yes.
So
yes.
That would be fantastic. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited to get into this season. If you love watching and listening to Postscript, join the conversation. You can like, comment, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and at youtube.com/@WITF Mosaic.
And if you want to make sure that we're here with you for Postscript for Season 4 of Miss Scarlet and the Duke, please consider becoming a WITF supporter. Your contributions to WITF makes this possible. So,
yep.
Thank you.
You can donate by visiting WITF.org/Mosaic. There's a little donate button there. And every little bit goes a long way, so we thank you for your support.
Yes, and thank you. Okay, let's get into Season 3, Episode 1.
Yes, The Vanishing.
Ooh.
So there's finally titles on WITF Passport, so I'm excited because they were not on the previous seasons.
Yep.
We start off with everybody getting their headshots, and I don't I'm like not glamour shots.
No, these are mug
police
shots.
Mug
these
shots.
are mug shots. Yeah,
Everybody is arrested.
We go through. We start off with a mug shot of Ivy, and you're like,
right,
what is happening here? And then it's Clementine Briggs, which I found out her last name.
Yep.
And then Solomon James, who I was like, oh wait, who? Oh, it's the guy from the shop, and
with Aladdin's lamp or whatever. Yeah.
And then Barnabas Potts, and he says, "That damned woman." and then there's Eliza, who's like, "There's been a terrible mistake." And so it's just, I laughed at that. And then,
well, I did make a note that there's no Moses.
Yes,
so
that's
no
a good
Moses
point.
in these mug shots.
Which they explain a little bit later.
Yeah.
And so we cut to William showing up and seeing them all in the jail cell. So they're in the jail cell, and Eliza says, "I can explain." And William grimaces, and that is the transition right there into.
The opening credits. And I think they're the same, right?
As Season 1, I think. I think it jumped back to Season 1 with the toe tag, because that wasn't in Season 2.
But weren't there roses, too?
There was.
Is it a mashup of Season 1 and 2?
Maybe
because some of it was from
I thought it was just Season 1
because I was trying to pay attention this time.
Yeah. So still excellent, still good. And we get through the intro, and then we were with Eliza and William in Scotland Yard.
So she's explaining to William that it's all a misunderstanding, and she shouldn't have gotten her friends involved, but it was a complex case she was working on.
Very complex. So complex that William has to describe all the different things. So Solomon had public disorder,
and he only pretended to be intoxicated.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then identity fraud was Ivy, because her cover as headmistress.
Her cover was Eliza's old headmistress, and Eliza said, "How was I supposed to know my old headmistress was still alive?"
Yes. And then theft and Clementine, which is just like that goes without saying.
She says Clementine is a law unto herself.
Yes.
I never told her to pickpocket a government minister.
Wow.
So all of these things. Oh, and William also says, "Oh, Mr. Potts is your friend now," which I thought was really funny.
No.
But he was unfortunately just calling on Ivy. He just wanted a date.
Happened to be there, just caught up in the mix of
Poor
it all.
Barnabas.
And so this season hits the ground running with an immediate jail time.
She's arrested again.
Like, we're going to check that off.
Everyone's arrested.
So William says that for them to sign the release forms. Ivy is not happy because Barnabas Potts is humiliated and had shaky hands.
Yeah. Ivy's not happy because Barnabas isn't happy. And Eliza thanks William because he does get them all out of trouble. There's no charges that are going to be brought. And we find out that Moses is off doing something.
Yeah, Eliza's
not available. And she brought her friends in because she needed help, but it's all Moses' fault because he wasn't around.
Exactly. She blames Moses for all of their predicament. So that's the question. Ivy says, "Where is Moses anyway?" And so then we cut to where Moses is, and I almost said it's basically like an octagon situation with all these guys betting on it's bare knuckle. It's not bare knuckle boxing because they do have they're wrapped up a little bit.
But it looks a little rough.
It
looks real rough,
like backstreet boxing match.
It's an illegal boxing match with gambling. William comes in and arrests everybody for gambling without a license, including Moses. Mm-hmm. And he takes Moses out to I almost said cop car, but it's a buggy.
Yes.
And he gives Moses 2 choices. He can either be arrested or he can give him information on a suspect he's trying to track down.
And a certain suspect, and that the info is confidential. Yeah. And this is I love this whole section. Because Moses is just sitting there in the carriage, the cop carriage, and he's like, is it Logan Cooper?
He's wanted for armed robbery of the Winchester Bank.
Yeah, Moses has all the information.
He knows all of it. Yeah.
And William is just on the back heel there trying to figure out how does Moses know all this?
Right.
And
well, he asks basically who's the snitch, and he says there's no snitch.
There's no snitch. And Moses even knew that there was 2 witnesses, a Mr. Hall and Mr. Myman, and so that William had launched a manhunt for Cooper and last seen in Carrying Cross area on Tuesday night, and William's
all of the information.
Yeah, is that is all classified information. Who's your snitch? And then Moses says it was no snitch, and that's when we cut.
And we see the Police Illustrated News.
Yeah.
And William demands that Basil Sinclair reveal his source because it's somebody in the police department. Obviously, he has a snitch.
William is mad.
And the police officer, so he demands to know who the officer was who fed him the classified information. And he said, well, there wasn't just one.
No.
And he brings in all of these officers. One of them is Detective Phelps, who's been working with William for a while.
5 men standing before William, yeah.
And we find out that they share this information with the press in order to get money or free drinks, evidently, to supplement their wages. So
William's very clear. No more talking to the press. Don't talk to journalists. And then Fitzroy's like, I have a friend.
I have a friend, Mr. Lawrence, who's an opera critic.
For the Sunday Times. And they're going to go see the latest, was it Gilbert and Sullivan?
I don't remember anymore what the show is, but they were going to see a show together. And am I supposed to not talk to him?
And Phelps gives him a hard time.
Yeah, Phelps always gives him a hard time because he's so fancy.
And Fitzroy's like, I wasn't talking to you, Charlie.
I know. They have it back. They do a little back and forth, and then William basically tells them both to just shut up and stop acting like brothers.
So then after that little exchange, we know that the Scotland Yard, William in particular, is not in favor of the press, and that he doesn't want his men talking to them.
Right.
So we leave there, and we go to Eliza's house, and Ivy is worried about Barnabas and his reputation.
She's still worried about Mr. Potts. And Eliza says that it was naive of her to tackle such a complex case. And Ivy's like, well, good. I'm glad that you're not thinking of expanding your empire anymore. And she was just like, no, I am going to expand my business.
Bigger and better. Off to the bank. You got to get more money. Ask for a loan.
And she won't take no for an answer.
Which then immediately cues up a montage of bank, officials.
Bank managers saying no.
No.
Just no.
Nope.
Over and over and over again to an increasingly frustrated Eliza.
No. So we're back at the office. Eliza picks up the mail, goes through the door, and turns around from the doorway and sees William approaching her. And William asks if they're still having dinner this evening.
Yeah, so they're back onto their dinners.
They do dinners.
I was so happy.
Yeah. And then Eliza asks if they can rearrange, and William's like, yes, we can. Again.
Yes.
You did this last month, because they do it every month. It's the last, so.
Oh, yeah. I forget what their schedule is, but they have a schedule.
Yeah.
And she asked him to reschedule last month, and now she's asking again. But she's had a bad day.
Yeah, a very vexing day.
And so has he.
Yeah, they compare notes, and that it's not that it's a competition, but
right.
William tells Eliza that the problem that he's dealing with is due to Basil Sinclair and his paper, and that how 200,000 souls will have read it, and all this information that's supposed to be confidential is out there.
Well, because at first she says, "Well, just have them pull the story and issue a retraction, no big deal." And that's when he mentions the 2,000 souls will have already 200,000 souls will have already seen the paper.
And Eliza's very, very taken by this. She's like, 200,000. Yeah, very interesting.
You can see the little wheels turning in her head. She's got an idea.
Yeah. And so William, as he leaves, he says, perhaps Mr. Potts is right. The country is going to hell in a handcart. And so William exits stage left, basically, and Eliza's still thinking about the 200,000 people.
Huh?
And so we cut to the Fat Goose Pub,
Yeah.
And Basil Sinclair is leaving it and runs into Eliza.
Yeah, Eliza's approaching the Fat
She's
Goose
inbound.
pub. And so she approaches him and says she'd like to place an ad in his paper, but he has an even better idea.
So they go
into the pub.
They go into the Fat Goose, and Eliza says, "You want to hire me and run an article on the investigation?" And Basil's like, not just an article. It's a 5-part serialized adventure
about the lady detective.
The lady detective. And so apparently normal police stories are boring, and Eliza is more alluring.
Yes, alluring was the word that I jotted down too. And so he starts talking about the case that he wants her to investigate, which is one of the vanished magician. One of his journalists attended a show and was sketching the magic act. Yep. Alfonso the Great, Italian illusionist, actually vanished during his vanishing act. They don't know where he went.
Yes.
So this is her case, and he's going to write a 5-part series about her investigation.
And so then we cut to the Flanders Theater where this magic act takes place.
Yep.
Eliza is talking to a Miss Ling, who is a magician's assistant.
Yep.
And apparently Alfonso did vanish, went into the box, usually came back into the box, but did not. It was just gone completely.
Right. I mean, she actually walks Eliza through how the magic act actually works, too. Like that there's a cushion at the back and a false bottom for his legs, so he can just kind of hide out in there, get smushed, and then they expand it, and ta-da, he's back.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we see this in a flashback. And in this flashback, I noticed that Alfonso, the great Italian magician, is wearing this white mask.
Oh, yeah, he's wearing a white mask.
And I'm like,
so
okay, that's kind of weird. I'm like, I'm mental note, just, jotting that down.
We don't actually know it's Alfonso. You were onto that right away.
Well, I wasn't that. I was just wondering why it was a mask. And so, I wasn't that far along. But we get there because that was a thing. So, we've talked about that. We should see the plunger, the space, all that stuff. So then we cut to Eliza in the backstage looking for Alfonso's room.
Yeah, because that's where he was last seen before the act. Obviously, it was in his dressing room. She asks for directions to the room, and the one guy that she asks tells her to bugger off. Yeah, because I guess there's already been some investigators or journalists, maybe,
or maybe he's just really rude.
He could also just be very rude.
He's very rude. I wrote that down.
But Eliza keeps wandering, and she finds a girl.
And initially, I thought it was Miss Ling again from the back because they look very similar.
Oh, right, because they're both magician assistants.
She turns around. It's another magician's assistant. This is when we find out that there are 2 magicians.
Yeah, the other magician.
The other magician. And that her father, this other assistant, Melina,
that's her name.
Melina, her father is the other magician.
Right. What is it? Slavin the sorcerer.
Yes.
The girl tells Eliza that, first she tells her where Alfonso's dressing room is.
Yes.
And then when she walks in, Eliza finds his mask, the white mask that he was wearing during his last performance, a fake knife, and the theater owner, Mr. Flanders, walks in.
Yes, yeah.
And Mr. Sinclair and he were just meeting, talking about the story, and he's real.
He's kind of sleazy here a little bit. He's very
smarmy,
smarmy, a lady detective, and he's just looking her up and down.
Looks like he's trying to flirt with her, but it's not going well, and she's just like, I think I've seen enough here, and leaves.
Before she goes, he does mention something about the Flanders Phantom.
A
malevolent force, a ghostly apparition, which is
there's a ghostly apparition behind the missing magician. I wrote that down.
Right up Sinclair's alley. So that's she says, it's quite a headline, Mr. Flanders. It even rhymes. And he's like, does it? Oh, didn't even notice that. Right, sure.
Right.
So then Eliza leaves. And we're at the bar, and Phelps is talking to someone at the bar, and Fitzroy sees this, and Phelps comes back over to sit with Fitzroy, which I thought was really weird.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little out of place.
They're like frenemies, I guess.
I don't know. Trying to keep the peace is just what they.
Yeah.
I mean, we know Fitzroy was told basically to try and fit in, so maybe that's why he's there. He's trying to fit in, trying to earn some sort of repertoire with
rapport with Phelps. But Phelps comes and sits with him, which I thought was odd. But Fitzroy wants to know who Phelps was talking with, and Phelps says that it's a Detective Lenehan from the Bow Street working on the Cooper case. So,
right.
So Fitzroy's like, oh, okay. So I was thinking,
he just accepts that as truth.
And I kind of did too, as a viewer. Too. Because I was like, oh, is he talking to a journalist? Like, oh no, that's actually someone who's legit on the case.
Right, he says it so casually. He's a really good liar.
Yeah, and then he burps crazily.
Yeah,
he's
whoa, so
Phelps.
Gross. I think it's just to set up how different the two men are. I feel like they are just trying to make it very obvious.
One refined, one very not
just
refined.
A little bit gross, yeah.
Yeah. So like Phelps demands that Fitzroy coughs it up and that it's his turn to take it to buy another round
because
of
he
drinks.
has the money for it. Yep.
And they talk about the press ban, and Phelps orders Fitzroy to the bar for another round.
Right, because he doesn't have the press money to get his own round anymore.
Yeah, so there's incentive there. We talk about the incentive for them to actually interact with the press is
to get the extra money or the extra drinks. But then Williams walks into the pub, and he is hopeful that their hope for Logan Cooper is over because a body was just pulled from the river.
Yep, and they leave.
Right, they
leave. And I wrote down, I bet magician. I was like, yeah, that's not Cooper. Which they never resolved that yet in this episode, the Cooper thing.
I don't think they do, no.
Okay.
So we flash to the mortuary because, we got to look at this body, and it's very quickly decided it is not Logan Cooper. It's like this old
I love how they do these quick cuts where they're like, it's going to be this, and then it's like they just cut. It's like, nope, it's not that, and then we're like, okay,
and then we're back at Eliza.
Yeah, so that ain't Logan Cooper, Phelps says, and Fitzroy says, who is he then? And then we cut to the knock on the red door, and Eliza answers, and I'm thinking it's going to be William. But it's not William. It's Mr. Sinclair.
Mr. Sinclair. He's shown up to give her the update, which is that the magician's body was found.
Yes.
From in the Thames.
It is definitely not just a publicity stunt for the magician.
Right, because Eliza thought initially it was just a publicity stunt because everything was lining up to like, this is just to get attention for the show.
Yeah.
But Sinclair is excited because now it's a murder case and it will be on the front page.
Yeah, yep.
So Eliza's probably kind of excited about that too, if we're going to be completely honest.
More exposure, yeah. She's still working with it. So then we go from there to the Flanders Theater. The police are there. Fitzroy is telling one of the other police officers that no one should be coming in or out. And I'm like, okay, well, Liza's going to be like walking right through this.
Right.
And so she does. She comes in naturally, and she tries to talk her way past Fitzroy.
Yeah, she tells him that she has permission of William to go in. Yeah. He fully supports her investigation.
And William's like, am I indeed in support of you? And like he just like swoops in out of nowhere.
She looks like, ugh.
Caught in the lie. Eliza's like, I'm in the middle of a case, and William knows that she was hired by Sinclair.
She's working with Sinclair,
and there's that back and forth dialogue between Eliza and William. And William pauses to see if Eliza is genuinely
offended, right?
Yeah.
Or she's just trying to make him feel guilty.
Is it just a ploy? So yeah, there's that. And season 3, same great writing, same great editing. Love the look and feel of the show.
I have to point out though that William actually did hold his ground this time because he usually lets her in. No. But he does not let her in this time, and she's frustrated. And she rips a poster off of the wall outside of the theater and goes back to her office.
Oh yeah. I like, okay, this is where I had a note here. I said like, Eliza, I'll just have to run my own investigation. William says, as you wish, and doesn't like the newspaper. And then I wrote in my note, I think the mask is important, and that Alfonso was already dead and someone else was wearing the mask is what I wrote down.
Okay.
And then Eliza looks at and pulls down the poster, like you said. So we go back to the office with Basil Sinclair.
Right. And she's talking about the difference in wands.
From the poster
to what he actually
the illustration,
uses.
the illustrator who was there.
Right, the illustrator and the poster. That's what it was.
The illustrator who Basil sent to the show illustrated the magician holding a black wand instead of the silver wand that was on the poster.
Yep, that's what it was. And Basil says that there was no wand used during the performance, but he asked the illustrator to add one in because everybody loves a magician with a wand.
Basil definitely flies loose with the truth.
He likes those these flavor adding flares. He likes little pieces of flair on his stories.
So so he definitely embellishes is the word, I think.
Yes, that embellishes the truth just a little bit for interest. So then we go to the pub and...
Oh, I thought we went back to the theater. Did we go back
did we go back to the theater? I thought it was a pub that they were in.
Oh, okay.
But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
no, you're right.
Because I think they're having a drink.
No, it's a bar.
Okay.
It's back at there's a bar, Miss Ling. The reason why I thought it was a theater because Miss Ling was there. It's Miss Ling.
And the theater owner, Mr. Flanders.
No. We go to the theater And Eliza follows Miss Ling to the bar.
Oh, that's okay.
What it was.
That's where I did not put down that transition.
Yeah, and Miss Ling is having an intimate drink with Mr. Flanders, the owner of the theater.
Yeah. There's definitely something a little bit scandalous happening here. There's an affair.
Yeah.
He claims he was just checking on Miss Ling to make sure she was okay because her magician went missing during an act. And Mr. Flanders, Eliza's trying to get information from both of them, and Mr. Flanders says, well, now the investigation is for the police because it's a murder investigation. Yeah. And that's not as glamorous as a PR stunt pulled by a magician. He thought he was just going to get this like wonderful story. They find the magician. Yeah. Ha ha. It's all a PR stunt.
And this is when I'm thinking that he might be a suspect because he's very dismissive. And anytime someone changes their tune, I'm like, what's going on here?
Murder investigation is just not as sexy for people.
Well, that's what Eliza thought. So I just was, I don't know, my alarm bells were like, wait a sec, what's going on with this guy?
He also says that the only thing the paper should be printing right now is that the theater is open for business.
That's his priority.
So...
Eliza still wants to get more information, so she wants to talk to Miss Ling, but Mr. Flanders doesn't want to leave. So she kind of like twists the screw a little bit by saying like, "Aren't you married with children?"
She basically threatens to run a story about his affair. With Miss Ling. And so he allows her to talk to Miss Ling. So Eliza's really good at using
leverage.
Yes, some light blackmail.
Yes,
she doesn't actually go through with it most of the time.
It's more threats.
There's more threats. Yeah,
where Nash, I think, who's not in this episode, would have probably actually carry through. Yeah. Maybe that is the difference between the two of them. A little bit.
Maybe he just takes it one step too far. She threatens, he actually does it.
Follows through. So anyway, so Mr. Flanders leaves. Eliza is able to talk to Miss Ling.
Right, and she asks if it's unusual for Alfonso not to use his wand during a performance, and she finds out that, it is unusual, but she assumed that he sold it for his upcoming retirement. So we find out that Alfonso is planning to retire.
Yes.
He was hitting 50 years in the business. That's when he planned to leave, and that she thinks he sold his wand to a shop on Carnaby Street, and she had already told the inspector this.
And that piques Eliza's it was like the inspector.
Yep. Eliza is one step behind William on the investigation. Yeah,
so
because it is a competition.
It's even though they say it isn't.
It's a competition.
So we cut to the shop, and William enters first because he got the head start. And there's a Mr. Baggett at your service who's there behind the counter.
Yep, and William asks to speak to the owner, Mr. Faversham.
Yep.
Oh, wow, that was hard for my mouth for some reason. Yeah. But we find out that he died 10 years back.
Yep.
And, but it's all a joke.
Mr. Baggett makes the joke about the skull with a hat that's right next to him.
That's right.
He basically makes it sound like that's Mr. Faversham, even though it wasn't.
Talk to him.
Yeah.
He's like, it's not really a human skull.
No. So Mr. Baggett just decided to keep the name for the shop, and we find out because Mr. Baggett is very annoying with his coin making.
Oh my gosh, he keeps pulling coins everywhere. William's just like, please stop.
William's like,
he's not in the mood.
No, never would. I can't even imagine a moment when William would be in the mood to have like coins pulled out of his ears.
No, I don't think there is a moment. But Mr. Baggett thinks that.
But we learn that he's a magician, though. Right. So that's like he's not just a shop owner. We know that he actually does magic.
He is a magician too, and he assumes that Alfonso is just in trouble with the law, because he's always up to some sort of fun. Yes. I think is the way that it was phrased.
And I was looking very closely to see how his reaction was upon finding that he was dead, because sometimes that's a good tell. I was like, I don't know if he's a suspect.
I don't think this one is the guilty.
Well, if he's not, he was a good actor, and they're all.
They're all good. But he was really good at not being guilty. So he finds out that his friend is dead, and he does get serious when he finds this out. He stops pulling money out of places. And Eliza walks in, but William immediately escorts her out.
Yeah, they have a little discussion about what they can and can't do.
Right, and whether, she can just take turns. She has to wait her turn.
And they agree that it would be better if they just listen at the same time.
Well, she basically says it would be silly for her to have to wait her turn. So which
he agrees to.
He allows her to come in this time. But on the condition that no details about the investigation go public before the investigation is complete. This is important because she reiterates that no information will go public before the investigation is complete.
Yes. So they question Mr. Baggett together. Yeah. And we find out that Mr. Alfonso did not sell his wand to Mr. Baggett.
He was supposed to.
And we find out also that he was the fifth Alfonso the Great Italian illusionist.
And he's not Italian.
No. And each of the generations had a silver wand that was gifted to them. So there were multiple silver wands.
Yeah, so the father would gift a silver wand to the future Alfonso, the great Italian illusionist.
And they, like you said, they weren't Italian. They were actually from Kilburn. And then Alfonso had special shoes made. So no one could tell when he was shorter.
Took over. Yeah,
he had special shoes made with like extra heels,
yep.
And so that allowed him to actually since they all wear masks, and that actually I was like, oh, that's why they wear the mask.
You can't tell that it's a different Alfonso.
Person.
Yep, it just keeps that magic alive.
Yes, and so that Alfonso was supposed to sell the wand to Mr. Baggett at 7 p.m.
Right, and we also learned that it is unusual. This is, I think, the first time we learned that it's unusual for him to be late.
Yes.
So it was unusual for Alfonso to be late to any appointments.
So the appointment was at 7 p.m. to sell the wand. 9 o'clock was when the show started.
Right.
So we have that information. So we cut to outside of the store, and Eliza wants to see the body or the coroner's report.
Right.
And William's like, no.
And she asks him if there was anything unusual on it, which, I mean, is he actually going to tell her? No. But
he says that he has other cases to deal with.
He says no, and he tries to scurry off, and he sniffs.
Which Eliza knows because she knows him.
She's like, you sniffed. You're lying.
It's a tell that he is lying.
He's like, I just have a cold.
Yeah, just have a cold. And he leaves.
And he scurries off. So I think this is a really good place for a break.
Oh, yeah.
Because obviously Eliza's going to take matters into her own hands and go to the mortuary.
Like she does.
Yep.
Welcome back. We were just at the point where we were going to the city morgue because Eliza wanted to go there and William said no. So we know that she's going to be there.
Right, because she knows that he knows things that she doesn't know. And he's not telling her.
How we said that just now was a little bit weird, but I really liked it because it was exactly right. That is how it needed to be. So we're at the city morgue. Moses is there.
He collides with Mr. Potts, and I'm like,
on the way in.
Obviously, pickpocket.
Pickpocket, Moses, and then we cut to inside, and it looks like a little bit later at night, but slams the keys down. Eliza enters right behind him, and they're looking at the report and also the body, and
they see there was a hairline fracture to Alfonso's skull, but the cause of death is listed as drowning, and his death was anywhere between 6 p.m. and midnight.
Yes.
So his act ended at 10 p.m., so Eliza thinks that's a 2-hour window where he may have been murdered. And then Moses also points out that there's signs of liver damage, so he could be a drinker. And Moses is kind of like picking up the clothing and everything that the corpse was brought in, and he says, "What's up with these heels?"
Yeah, because platform shoes.
Right, and he gets river water on him because he kind of stops, and Eliza's like, "What?" And he's like, "It's the Thames." Yeah,
it smells like it. And I didn't get this the first time I saw it, but that's how they knew there was a compartment.
Yeah, that's
inside.
how Eliza realized that the heel was a compartment. And
just
she
slides to the side, and there's
a key,
a golden key.
There's a key inside the heel. So we go to the theater
because they have a key.
They have a key. They have a key to something, and Moses says it's definitely to a safe.
And so they're looking for the safe. It's super dark. Moses has like a lamp that they're like looking through the room.
Yeah, and Eliza basically, I think she trips over like a table or something. So it's
still too dark, even with the lamp that Moses has. And so she sees a genie lamp.
Yeah, she sees Aladdin's lamp on the table.
Which is interesting because Aladdin's lamp was found in a cave of treasures. And so I was thinking there's treasure hidden behind it.
That's smart. I did not think of that.
So she looks at it. She's going to try to light it.
Yeah, she tries to lift it, and it's actually attached to the table.
And so they find out that you can turn the lamp and a compartment unlocks and pops up.
Right, and the table opens.
It's the safe.
There's the safe inside.
So they take the golden key, unlock the safe, and there's a silver wand inside.
Yep. Alfonso's wand is inside, and Eliza believes at this point that the person on stage that night wasn't Alfonso.
Nope.
It was an imposter because Alfonso was already dead.
Yep, and because he always wears a mask.
Right, so no one would know. No one would know.
So we take that information, we cut back to Eliza's office. She's basically telling this to Sinclair about the missing wands being the hidden safe, the murderous imposter, and all this. Like Basil's
he
like
is delighted. He is so excited.
He says this is simply delicious. So, and then
but of course his thoughts and prayers are with the family of the deceased.
Sure, Basil.
Okay,
sure.
You are just seeing dollar signs.
Eliza wants to share the info with William, but Sinclair talks her out of it and says that William may overshadow Eliza in the story.
Right, and he doesn't want her. He wants Eliza to be the main.
He says that he wants her to be the main one. So Basil suggests delaying in sharing the information with William.
Right. And he says if she were to delay a few days, maybe find evidence useful in court, then her role would be even more important. That's what he tells her.
Which sounds legitimate.
Yeah, I mean, not a total lie. Yeah. But this is for his own self-promotion and his own means.
So then we cut to Ivy and Eliza. They're walking in the street. Talking
they're out
like
doing errands and all that.
And Eliza basically says that Basil Sinclair is right, that he could do that. It's like, what harm could it be to do? And
just
like,
wait a few days. After all, he's told me to run my own investigation.
Yeah, that's all true. And then
I love this. So Ivy starts pointing out that Eliza could be charged with perverting justice, a charge that carries a sentence of 7 years in prison, though a lesser sentence for first-time offenders. I think it's just 3.
Only 3 years. Yeah. And you're like, what? Where did Ivy just get that? And so we find out that Ivy has been practicing her reading, which we learned about in previous seasons.
By reading Eliza's father's law books.
Yeah, law
books.
Which
I love this because law books are, not the most fun reading.
No.
So Ivy's she was always super smart.
Amazingly
but now she might be the first female lawyer in London. I don't know.
She has encyclopedic recall. That's amazing.
She remembers
she's like,
everything.
oh yes, all this. So yeah. The only thing that was holding her back was the fact that she was not allowed to or not supported in her learning
she was
read.
Never taught to read. Now she knows how to read, and now she's reading law books. So yay, Ivy. I love her so much.
Very, very cool. And so Ivy says, don't give William false info because you could be charged with perjury.
Right, although that's only triable on indictment.
I love it.
I love her so much. Ivy, she notices everything, right? And she remembers everything. Yes. She's actually kind of a dangerous woman. She's a good one to have on your side.
The makings of a very good detective in her own right. And
I think my prediction is they will be working more together. Oh, that's my prediction for this season.
Okay. I would agree with that. I think that's definitely in the cards. So they're walking through the street. They get to the office door. Eliza opens the office door, and then I have my notes here. I'm like, Ivy's amazing. just because of everything that just happened, Ivy's amazing. And so Eliza says, can't you just read Dickens or Austen like a normal person? I laughed out loud. I was like,
No, you need Ivy on your side.
Yeah. And then Ivy warns Eliza to mind what you say to him, talking about William.
Be careful about what she tells William. And Eliza says that she's avoiding William at all costs. So, obviously...
William shows up right at that moment, just is right there. William! Oh, hey,
Eliza asks after William's cold, how's your cold?
Oh, because he sniffed.
He sniffed, and he said it was a cold.
And William says, better. And she's like...
That was fast.
That was quick, yeah. And there's an uncomfortable silence, and there's a few uncomfortable silences in this one right here.
Yeah.
So, there's uncomfortable silence. Ivy's just like...
Yeah, she looks like she I don't know, ate a canary.
So then William asks, are there any developments in the case? And Eliza says nothing of note, which she's lying.
Right.
And then she asks the same about him, and nothing of note. Nothing. And then I'm like, I wrote down, if they just work together. And there's an uncomfortable silence again. And Ivy is just standing there. We cut to Ivy.
With her eyes wide and her mouth just...
She feels it's so awkward.
She's like, okay, what do I do here?
And then Eliza says, I am certain of it. he is hiding something from me after
he leaves. Yep.
Yeah. And so we cut to Scotland Yard and William's office, and William says
she's hiding something.
Yeah, so we have that nice parallel between Eliza's.
Yeah, they know each other so well. Like they both know that the other's hiding, but they're too kind to point it out because prideful. I guess they were prideful.
Yeah,
but they're both they're at each other's throats, and they both agree that they have to run their own investigation. So I mean. That's why they're not sharing things.
It is what it is. So William's saying that to Fitzroy. Fitzroy asks, "Did you tell her what we found out?" And William's like, "No, not while Sinclair is her client."
Right.
So Fitzroy shares that Phelps was talking to a Detective Lanahan at Bow Street regarding the Cooper case, and William's like, "There is no Inspector Lanahan at Bow Street."
And so now he basically. He didn't out Phelps.
He didn't try to. He didn't
think
so.
He didn't think he was just I can help you with this case if you want because the Cooper case is covered.
That's right. Yeah. He was making an offer.
And so, but William knows that Phelps has been talking to the press again.
Yeah. And so we cut to right outside of William's office. Yep. Phelps is laughing it up with the lads, which incidentally I think are the same five that we're talking to.
It's probably the same five.
And William's like, "Get back to work, not you, Detective Phelps." And then he pulls him aside and says, "If this happens again, you are gone."
Yeah.
Understood?
He's livid.
He's real mad.
When William walks away, they cut to Phelps, and Phelps looks legitimately angry.
Yeah.
Too.
So this is he says, "Yes, Duke," but he's ticked.
Mad.
He's very ticked off. So from there, we cut to the theater.
Right. And Eliza is there with Melina.
Yep.
And she's looking for Miss Ling. She's asking Melina where Miss Ling is. And Melina seems really distracted because she's
not just distracted. She's really kind of upset and mad at Eliza for some reason. And then she throws it in her face that Alfonso was not a heavy drinker with the gambling debts and all this stuff. And how dare you do this? She
never said that. And how dare you print those things?
And Eliza doesn't know.
But she also is upset because she's moving her father's stuff into Alfonso's old dressing room.
Yeah.
And she makes the mention that he couldn't even wait till the funeral was done in order to do it. So she's mad
at
just
her father.
In generally and at the world, but also at Eliza for supposedly printing these lies.
And Eliza doesn't know what's happening, and Melina hands Eliza a copy of the Illustrated Police News, and of course, Basil has
he's already written.
He's already
story.
Posted it. Imposter murders degenerate magician. Excuse me. Imposter murders degenerate magician. Let's try saying that 3 times fast.
So hard to say.
Yeah,
I
really
great
for a headline.
Actually write it down.
Great headline. Yeah, try saying that 3 times fast. I challenge anyone listening to this. You'll probably do a lot better than I did.
Eliza's obviously angry.
Yeah.
And back at her office.
With Basil.
She's reaming him out for publishing details.
He's all happy. He's like, "Did you like the part about the lady detective and her inner bloodhound?"
Yeah, he thinks he did her a favor. But really, he's hindering her investigation and Williams. She knows Williams going to be real angry about this.
Yeah, Eliza says, "Clearly, I have no such thing as an inner bloodhound, or I would have sniffed you out as an untrustworthy crook." And Eliza asks for a retraction and an apology.
Right.
And then Basil points out her hypocrisy in the fact that yet you have a man's name above your door. And Eliza's like, "That's not the same thing at all." And Basil says, "Forgive me, is your name Henry Scarlet?"
Yep.
And Eliza says, "Someday it'll be my name above that door." And then Basil says...
And he says that maybe until she's powerful enough to put her name above the door, that it would be smart to make powerful friends instead of enemies. Yeah. So he's threatening her now.
Oh, yeah. And Eliza is calls him out on it. He's like, "Are you threatening me?" Basil says, "Merely advising you." And then this is the phrase that I was like, oh no. You know which one I'm talking about.
I don't know if it's the same one that I had written down.
Go ahead.
So I wrote down, people will only pay to see the bearded lady once.
That's it. I was like, no.
So essentially he's saying this is your only big shot. You got to do it.
Yeah. And that is like a switch is flipped in her, and she is just like, "I do not need advice from a washed up
hack
who cannot get a job on a real newspaper. We are done, sir. We're done, sir."
I wrote that down and I went, ouch.
Yeah. I felt that too.
But so Basil leaves, but not before threatening to ruin her entire reputation. He said he's taken down archbishops. A lady detective should be no trouble at all.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Basil.
It's on.
It's on.
It's on. So we cut to William's office, and Eliza is coming clean. She has her head in her hands. She says, "I'm sorry. I should have shared my feelings rather than have you read them in the newspaper." And then William says that would have been preferable. Right. And then Eliza says, "You're right about Sinclair. I should have just gone to have listened to you." And that would have been preferable too. William's very agreeable in these things, but very angry a little bit.
She asks him how long he's going to be mad.
And then,
but I wanted to point out.
William says, "Why? Are you in a hurry?"
Yes. I wanted to point out that this is one of the most sincere apologies she's ever given William.
That is a good point. I never thought about that. Yeah,
she's very sincere in this. Yes. And that might be why he wasn't reaming her out. But he was letting it go on a little bit there.
Well, he was letting her sit on her coals that she made.
Yeah.
Then he asks, "Did you really call Sinclair a washed-up hack?"
Yes.
And they both laugh.
And that's why he's not actually that mad at her, because they have that in common. They both think he's a washed-up hack. And then they start to talk about the case together now. Yes, so they're finally collaborating.
Sharing notes. And they find out that the other magician couldn't wait to move into Alfonso's dressing room. Right. Miss Ling is having an affair with the theater owner.
Yep.
William shares that he has another wand. This is a big one. We didn't know this.
The wand wasn't used, and she's certain that there was an imposter on stage. And after William confirms that she's no longer working with Sinclair, he shares that he also suspected an imposter, but he didn't know about the other wand.
And so there's two wands.
And then the Harry Potter music started. Oh. It's literally the wand music from Harry Potter. I don't know. I was just wait, did we just splash into Harry Potter land?
Yeah. Okay. I didn't get that, but I should have. My daughters would be like, "Why didn't you think that?" They
the
love
Harry Potter one. So William pulls out the wand he has.
Yep, which is
the one that was on the magician's body.
Yes, it was in his amongst his clothes, his belongings when they found the body.
Yep.
And so we find out that they are matching wands, and that makes sense because we heard that wands were made for the different generations.
Mm-hmm. And so one was gifted; it wasn't handed down; it was gifted too. So it would be
So there are multiple wands.
Yep.
And so we find out that the wand actually has a compartment that you pull apart, and then there's a rolled up photo in it of the person who is giving it to you. So you remember the person who was giving it to.
I couldn't tell on my tiny screen because I was watching on my laptop who the picture was.
Yeah.
So that's good to know. That makes a lot of sense.
So it was Alfonso's father in the one, and then the one that the new one that Eliza had that was in the cabinet locked up.
Right. That was Alfonso.
That was a picture of Alfonso that he was going to give to his protege, whoever
whoever took over. Yep.
So we got some more information there. The picture's starting to get filled in.
Yep. And they also noticed that the photo in her wand, which would have been Alfonso's wand, the one that he was going to give away, I should say.
Yes.
Was taken in the magic shop.
Yeah, because we see the skull with the hat with Mr. Baggett was making fun of. It was the guy talking that it wasn't, and so so we know where to go. And so that's where we're going. So we go to the store. Mr. Baggett can't share.
He can't share the magician's secrets.
Yeah, he says he can't share.
But then Eliza tells him that perverting the course of justice carries a 7-year sentence.
She quotes Ivy. Yeah.
So thanks, Ivy.
Yep.
And that's enough to make Mr. Baggett talk.
Yep.
So Alfonso commissioned a replica box of his vanishing box. Mm-hmm. But he wanted it with an additional false bottom. And we find out that his assistant actually designed the box for him, and he had the duplicate wand made with the photo inside to give to his assistant.
Yes.
So his assistant knew what he was doing,
and so then we're thinking Miss Ling,
right?
And then we find out no,
it's not Miss Ling.
Not Miss Ling, and that's the twist in this part right here. It's Melina.
Yeah.
And so we cut to the theater performance. They're about Melina's about ready to go on with Slavin the Sorcerer, her father.
Yep.
And William walks up behind Melina and says, "Melina, I'm going to have you come with me."
Right.
And Melina's like, "But I'm about ready to go on." William's like, "Nope,
doesn't matter."
So William brings her back to the box, and Eliza's there, and
she's rubbing off the paint.
Yep. And we see that there were both names on there.
Right. Alfonso's name was underneath her father's magician name.
Slavin the Sorcerer.
Slavin the Sorcerer.
So we go to Scotland Yard for the official interrogation. Melina's there, and she reveals that Alfonso and Slavin used to be on the same bill for years. Alfonso actually taught Melina everything he knew about magic because he didn't have any kids of his own.
Right, he was mentoring her to be a magician one day, while her father told her that women could only ever be assistants.
Yeah, so Alfonso was the supportive father that Melina never had.
Angry fish shake.
Yeah. So again, one of the themes of the entire show is this those that support
women and those who try to keep them in their little box.
Yes.
Yeah.
Literal box.
Literal box. Yeah, this time.
So Alfonso was more supportive. When Alfonso didn't show up, Melina knew that he wasn't coming back because she built the box. And she built the box for his 50th anniversary.
That's what I was going to say. So she helped design the replica box so that he had this grand idea that he was just going to vanish.
Just disappear.
That was going to be his final magic act, and his lasting legacy was that he was going to just vanish. And with this replica box, which had an extra false bottom, not even his assistant would know where he went. Yeah. So he would just be gone.
Miss Ling would not know. The only people who would know would be himself and Melina because she was the one who made the box.
Yep.
So, but when he didn't show up, Melina knew
he wasn't coming.
He wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
And so she also knew that he was increasing his drinking, and he was also very depressed.
He was drinking more. He was dreading retirement, and he just kept getting sadder and sadder. And the night before he died, she said he was feeling down and mentioned that there was no point to his life anymore. And I'm just like, oh.
And so this is when we find out the person who was impersonating Alfonso wasn't any of the guys.
No,
it was Melina with the mask on.
Yep.
And so, and she didn't know that he was dead, but she suspected.
Not
at that time,
confirmed at that point.
At that point. So this is when I put in my parentheses in my notes. I said, "This is not a murder mystery after all."
Nope.
This
is unfortunately, she knew that he died by suicide, and she didn't want him to go without the send-off he deserved. Which I love her for.
Yeah.
So she went out and did the performance as he intended. And then after the performance, she gutted the replica box completely and turned it into a box for her father. So
there is no
evidence whatsoever of this ever happening.
So we cut to outside in the hallway, and William and Eliza are talking. And William's not going to press charges. He decides not to because
that was really. He said, "I can't see what good would come from it. Yeah, there's no point to it." And he also mentions that there's more to life than work.
Well, before that though, I love the quote that he says. Yeah. He says, "A determined young woman, no doubt, she'll get where she's needed to be." And I wrote down Melina or Eliza.
That's true.
And then. He says, again, I hope it doesn't consume her, talking about the work. There's more to life than work, like you said. That was the quote. And so Eliza completely misses the point. And she's like, oh, don't be so hard on yourself, William. Life isn't all about work. And William laughs to himself, and he says, I wasn't talking about me.
I think it's so funny that she thought that he was talking about himself because, he does have a life outside of Eliza. She's had to fetch him from days off with other women.
Or Ivy has,
in the past. So, it's not like he's always working.
No, she just, for being a detective, sometimes she's completely oblivious to certain things.
To her own stuff.
Yeah.
So we also see at Scotland Yard, Phelps grabs Fitzroy and accuses him of snitching.
Yeah, and Fitzroy says, it wasn't my intention, it was a mistake. And then that's all we see from that clip.
That's all we see, yep, that's it. But we know it can't be good.
No, we cut to later in that night, William's office. Fitzroy enters, and he kind of walks around
he kind of keeps his head down,
the files
away.
You requested, sir. And
puts them on the desk and tries to sneak back out.
But William notices Fitzroy is all beat up. Yep. And so William says, how do we stop this from happening again?
Right, because Fitzroy automatically says, I won't tell you who did it.
No,
so he jumps, how can we prevent this again?
Yeah.
And so I thought this happened in season 2. And I was like, when did this happen? I remember it vividly. William takes Fitzroy to Moses during one of his illegal boxing matches, I assume.
Because this brings it all around full circle because we saw that early in the episode, and now we actually it ties in nicely. The writing is very tight. It's very good.
When William walks in at first with the money, Moses says, "I ain't snitching. Like I'm not snitching," and he's like, "No, William's gonna I need information on a crook."
He gives him the money to teach
Fitzroy how to box.
Yeah.
And so Fitzroy, I love this so much I wrote it down. Detective Fitzroy, but please feel free to call me Oliver, Mr. Moses.
Yes.
And he goes, "It's just Moses."
It's just Moses. And I laughed at that too because he hasn't said that for a while.
No,
it's like his catchphrase.
So they brought that back around. But I just love Fitzroy because he's so eager and like young and excited, and he just wants to like live a happy life. He's so sweet.
Here's my prediction. I think that if they ever do a spinoff of the series, it would be like Fitzroy basically, he's soaked up all the information he can get from William, from Eliza, from Moses, and he becomes like the ultimate detective.
That would be really fun. I would watch that too.
Yeah. So not that BBC is listening to this, but if anyone there, that would be a great show. I'd watch that too.
I'm still waiting for my spin-off of Moses and his other adventures when he goes missing. Like, what is he doing?
The show's just called It's Just Moses.
The Adventures of Just Moses.
It's Just Moses.
So back at Eliza's, Mr. Potts is in her kitchen, so he's apparently forgiven her enough to enter her home at this point, but he has not completely forgiven her. He's still making her feel bad about
There's some good banter, some grumbling about it being in a police cell. There are times when a simple apology will suffice. This was not one of them, he says, which I was like, that's a good line.
He's still real bitter.
And the
Ivy comes in with the Illustrated Police News,
which Eliza's thinking is going to be blasting her.
So these were my takes. So she thinks that it's going to be blasting her, but then we find out that it says nothing about her, absolutely nothing,
which is worse.
Well,
it's
that's
worse.
what I thought too, because I was like, now is she mad that she's not even mentioned at all?
That is more of an insult. 100%. I think so.
I feel like this was the compromise. Because so Basil wanted to ruin her.
Yeah.
William, we find out, warned him off.
Which we didn't know that at this point.
Right, at this point.
At this point in the show.
At this point in the show, I'm like, she's mad because she's not even mentioned.
Yeah, it's more insulting that she isn't mentioned. Eliza's like, how bad is it? And Ivy's like, there's nothing. Only good things about Inspector William. And Potts laughs
and not
so
a peep
hard
about you.
Oh, it's so good. And so we cut to Scotland Yard, and William enters the office, and Eliza's there reading the paper. Kind of still mad that she doesn't have any press. But
she also is relieved because she thanks William for warning him off.
Yeah, well,
she doesn't. Point.
She suspects this. She doesn't know for sure. And then William explains that he lifted the ban on his men so that his men could actually talk to the press again. Mm-hmm. And so Sinclair didn't rake Eliza through the coals. Eliza says, I know that I can be a tad, and then William jumps in, impatient, and then, it's like, it was a good gesture. It was a nice gesture that he did. And he admits that he would have to do it anyway because his men needed to, he would have had a revolt.
Fair. That's fair, yeah.
But the icing on the cake is that at the very end, Eliza invites.
Oh, yeah, she invites him to dinner.
Yeah.
She says, dinner's on her tonight. And he goes, I wasn't aware we were going out. And she says, well, life can't be all about work.
Which is the moral of this.
They're smiling at each other. It's real flirty. Yeah. I love it.
It's a beautiful way to end season 3, episode 1.
The Vanishing.
The Vanishing.
Yeah, this was, I love this episode so much. And I'm so glad that Moses is teaching Fitzroy how to box. Because I honestly thought it happened in season 2. I was like, when are they going to get to it? This poor kid just keeps getting beat up. He has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah.
So he's finally going to learn how to stand his own.
It sounds really good. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks again for listening and watching Postscript.
Yeah, you can find us at witf.org/mosaic, and we greatly appreciate your gifts of support. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. We can't wait to hear your thoughts about this season, too. So email us at ps@witf.org or comment on this week's short on Instagram at witf.org.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
I just blanked on it.
And we hope to see you again next week for episode 2.
Yep, we'll see you then.